remove this connector right here. We have two in the back. You can use a pick if you want to open up that little tab. Using a 7mm socket, we'll go ahead and remove this little screw here. Pop that cover off. Using a flathead screwdriver, go ahead and loosen the intake clamps. There's one there and one in the back over here. Go ahead and pop off our intake tube here. I want to go ahead and remove this hose from the valve cover. Just pop that out like that. Use a pair of pliers. Loosen this clamp and we'll slide this back. Using a 13mm socket and extension, we're going to go ahead and remove this bolt right here. We remove the 13s on our intake. One on the front. One here. And there's one in the back here. Using our 10mm socket, remove this one here. That one as well. Using a 5/16 socket, go ahead and remove these two screws. Go ahead and remove this 10mm bolt here. Now let's go ahead and loosen the upper portion of our intake. We're just going to use our mallet here just to tap this. Now that we have the upper intake loose, when we lift this up, we want to go ahead and disconnect the hose on the back side. This cover here is held on with two little plastic clips. We're going to use a pick. This pops off the top. And on the very back side, we have this little sensor right here. We should be able to swing that off. Take our intake and swing this off to the side like that. I want to go ahead and clean our surface right here and get off any of the residual gasket that is left on here. So if you have your plastic gasket scraper, you want to go ahead and clean this. You normally don't want to use anything metal because you don't want to gouge the aluminum surface on here. Now we're going to go ahead and stuff some towels into our intake here because we don't want any debris falling down inside. Go ahead and get that gasket material cleaned up. And then once it's all clean, go ahead and pull those paper towels out. And go ahead and disconnect our vacuum ports here. And then there's one in the back. It should allow us to bring this off to the side. We have our fuel injector connectors here. There's one here, 2, 3, and 4. We can go ahead and use a small pick. And go ahead and undo the tabs here and work those connectors off. And open up this little retainer clip here. Use an 8mm socket. I'm going to go ahead and remove this little bolt right here. This bolt is securing the bracket holding the ignition wires in place. Go ahead and remove that. Then we go ahead and remove our ignition wires. Our particular wires are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4 to make it easy to reinstall. If yours are not marked, you could use a piece of tape, write the cylinder numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 on it so that you put them back in the same place. Reach down and twist those boots off. For our back ignition wire, it's a little tough to reach in, so we're going to use our pliers here. Reach down and grab that. Pop that off. Take our wire set, tuck that back. On the top here, we have a couple Torx bits. I'll go ahead and remove this upper bracket here. Using a T30 Torx bit, I'll remove these Torx screws for the fuel rail. Let's go ahead and loosen this screw right here. Using our small pry bar, let's go ahead and work our injector clamp up and away. Use our small pry bar. I'm just going to gently get underneath the lip of the injector and pry upward. You're going to repeat the same process for the other 3. Go ahead and work that injector up and out. Go ahead and take your new injector, line it up. Go ahead and pop that into place. You want to go ahead and work that injector in so that the O-ring goes in and is seated. Go ahead and repeat for the other three. Install your injector clamp. And install the front section here first. I'm going to go ahead and install our screw on the front side for this clamp. Get that started a few threads. And let's go ahead and tighten that down. Install your 2 Torx bit screws in the clamp. Once you get those started by hand, go ahead and snug those down. So when tightening up this screw, you just want to get it snug, not super tight, it's just enough to hold the injectors in place. You can do the same with the back bolt. Going to connect our injector harnesses. Line it up, push it on. You feel it click into place, repeat for the other 3. Now go ahead and bring your ignition wires back over and just set those up in the general vicinity. Then we can go ahead and remove our towels from the intake. You want to make sure that you have a new gasket for this here as well. So I'm going to line this up. Just going to bring our intake over. Lower this down into place. And we're going to start a few of our bolts. With our 13 millimeter here, a 13 right behind the throttle linkage. So I'm going to get these started a few threads. And then we had a 13 in the back right where this notch is here. We had a 10 mil here and a 10 here. And we had one more 10 millimeter right in this notch right here. Okay. Now that we have all the bolts started and a gasket lined up properly, There's a few pieces we want to go ahead and get positioned. At this point, you want to go ahead and start routing your harness and everything where it was originally, making sure we can get everything lined up. Get your sensor connectors in the right area. Now on the back side of the intake, we have our last 10mm bolt, that there's a bracket in the back with a sensor. Want to make sure that that bolt goes through that bracket and into the intake. On this top portion right here, there are some rubber grommets that go through to the throttle body. We want to now go ahead, line this up, press it down, and there's a plastic clip on each side that will lock that into place. That is now secured. We have this vacuum port right here. Want to go ahead and line that up, slide that on. On the back side, we have this vacuum port right here. Slide that into place. The back side of our intake, we have this hose right here. It's our vacuum hose. I'll go ahead and position that. We'll get that worked on and get the clamp put back on. Go ahead and slide this hose into our valve cover port right here. I'm going to take this bolt, anchor down this bracket right here. Now on our intake bolts, we're just going to snug these down, and then we're going to come back and retighten after. I want to go ahead and torque these bolts down to 12 foot-pounds. I'm going to go ahead and snug this bolt down here. Now I want to go ahead and connect this connector right now. And then we'll line it up and we'll bolt it in right here. Start those bolts by hand, and then we'll go ahead and snug them down. We're basically just holding this in place. You don't want to reef on these bolts too tight. You want to snug them in, but there's a rubber grommet between this sensor and the intake. We're just making sure that that stays sealed. So once it snugs up just a hair bit more, and that one is done. Grab that sensor here. Good, line this up. Press it into place. Take your idle air control harness right here, line that up, snap that into place. Let's install your cover here. There's a little pin right here that slides in, and then just line up the hole in the top with that screw. Just a plastic cover, and snug it down. Let's go ahead and line up our bracket here. Get our bolt installed. Once you have that bolt lined up and threaded in, let's go ahead and snug this down. Now we can go ahead and install our ignition wires. Line those up and press them on. You should be able to feel the boot pop onto the spark plug. Go ahead and work our intake tube over. Don't forget to install this vacuum port right here. Let's go ahead and use our flathead screwdriver to go ahead and tighten that down.